Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. Happy Black Breastfeeding Week to everyone. Excited that you guys are here. So, we want to hold space and really talk about and amplify the work that our community members are doing in the space of advocacy for Black breastfeeding and talk to us about why it's so important for our communities and how these experiences impact the experience of motherhood and familyhood and bonding. So I have some awesome panelists here with us today that you guys are going to hear from that are doing amazing work in this space and in this field. So what I'm going to do is kick us off. Anise.
Hi. So I'm Anise. I am a therapist. I have been a therapist with children and moms for some years, and I'm currently a doctoral candidate in clinical psychology focused on Black maternal health equity and NICU parent wellness. And I'm here to share my lived experience as well as my professional insights today. Yeah.
Thank you. We can't wait to hear from you. Jabina Coleman. Will
Awesome.
you do me the honors and our audience the honors?
Absolutely. So happy Black Breastfeeding Week, everyone. I'm Jabina Coleman. I am a reproductive psychotherapist. I am a board certified lactation consultant. I wear several hats. I am one of the co-founders of the Perinatal Mental Health Alliance for People of Color, or the Alliance for People of Color. I am the co-founder of Bay Culture, Breastfeeding Awareness and Empowerment. And I do a host of things. My worlds collide with lactation and perinatal mental health. I too, Anise, am on the doctoral journey to getting my doctorate in health sciences and really looking at institutions and institutional changes and how we do that effectively, implementation science, but also just rooted in community. And so wanting to bridge those worlds. So I'm so excited to be here on this panel, having this conversation with you all.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And Ro, thank you for joining us. Can you tell the audience all about you?
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. I'm Roseanne Owagwe. Feel free to call me Ro. I am happy to be in this space, and I just love the title, color in the conversation, like how unique. I love it. So I'm a productivity coach. So what that means, I help women harmonize their personal and professional lives. I don't really like to use the word balance because we're looking more for harmony. And I'm a maternal health advocate. I'm a New Jersey-based mom. I have 3 sons. And I'm just working on bridging that gap between personal wellness and figuring out how we can make the changes that we need as it relates to systemic inequities. And I'm sure we'll get all into that later. So just happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you guys. And for all of you guys who don't know me, Shanita Alvarez Crawley, I'm a licensed clinical social worker, certified perinatal mental health specialist, do a lot of work around maternal health equity and advocacy, and newly appointed as the director of the Alliance for People of Color. So I'm really happy to be in this space and continue on with the great work that the Alliance has been visioning and moving forward so that we can support our communities. So to kick us off, I'm gonna just, because I'm looking at you first on my screen, Anise, can you share with us? I heard you say like you're working on your doctoral candidate and NICU wellness, right? Why did you choose that? And what about your experiences have driven you to want to focus and prioritize that research and that work in that space?
Yeah, well, that's my favorite question because it's birthed out of my own experiences and my own passions. My first son, I had a high risk pregnancy, and I was in the hospital, pregnant, on bed rest for some weeks before I had him preterm, and we had a NICU stay, and as a mental health professional at the time, I noticed that there were a lot of different types of supports, but the social and the psychological support was really lacking. And my goal became to really try to figure out, how do I fill that gap and how do I push that forward? But interestingly, the NICU where I was had a lot of lactation support, and I really credit that to being the reason why I was able to breastfeed. Like a lot of moms, I had my birth plan written out. I had a And I really planned that, like, my mom didn't breastfeed, and I was going to change that. I was going to breastfeed no matter what she said about how difficult it was. Um, and then when I encountered the NICU, I wasn't really sure if I was going to be able to actually do that. And if there hadn't been professionals in the actual NICU coming into the room, moving the breast around the way I needed to, really giving me the education and support, I would have never done it, because it does look a lot different. It does look a lot different to begin that journey than when you do get to bring your baby home. So those are some of the reasons why I really began to push my work in that direction.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that with us. And then congratulations to you with that journey. So just to like build off of that, how difficult was that? Because I heard you talk about like your birthing plan and these expectations. And like, I think before we went live, I shared with you, like I thought I was going to do all these things. I'm a twin mom. And then I had all these other complications with birth. So breastfeeding, like I can't keep up. Who did I feed last? Am I making enough milk? Like, so how were you able to, navigate the NICU, prioritizing wellness and still trying to let go and reimagine your expectations in that experience?
Yeah, loaded question. And I don't even know. I don't know if I have a great answer about how I did it, but I know that since living through that, the compassion that I've tried to give to other moms that I meet or work with who are in the NICU experiencing the same thing. Because when I was going through it, I didn't have a community yet of people who had the lived experience of the NICU. And I was really sticking to those expectations that I was going to breastfeed, it was going to look this way. And it was my mom who noticed how much of a toll it was taking on my mental health. But I just felt like this was something I had to do. It was the best thing for my baby. And having only one person to give me her wisdom, which was my mom, it didn't always feel like it landed the right way because she didn't have the same experience. I made it through for just probably leaning onto my own experiences as a mental health professional, trying to use coping skills. And just trying to find my own ways, honestly. Like at nighttime, I would feel really sad, but I would look at pictures of my baby and just try to give a little compassion to myself. So now I try to give a lot more of that to other moms, helping them to realize that, yeah, we have ideas about what we want to happen, but it's okay that we put ourselves first as well, because mommy's mental health and baby's mental health are entwined. They are not separate. And so when you take that moment to really think about what is working for you, what feels good for you in this moment, in this time, then you can do the things that align with your values, but also feel good for your health, and that's going to trickle down for the baby. And you know, a lot of times in the NICU, I know I felt this way. It feels like there's so little that you can do as a parent that breastfeeding starts to feel like I'm the mom. And this is the thing that I can do that no one else can do. And sometimes it's about trying to figure out the other ways that you can be a parent and feel like a parent when you're in the NICU, and not relying on that one way to get that sense of parenting.
Thank you for that. Jabina, I want to hear from you. In addition to just like your experiences and all the amazing work that you do with community-based and in Philadelphia and within your organization, how are you supporting NICU moms on this journey? And what does this look like if we wanted to like find other ways that our listeners could support and give the kind of support that Anise is talking about during that NICU experience and journey?
I think holding space and creating space for folks who've had NICU experiences. I do a lot of training, so I train for doulas and Maternity Care Coalition. And one of the last talks, it was breastfeeding in the NICU experience, because it's such a unique experience, and we have to create space and groups for people to be able to to talk about their experiences, to be heard, to be seen, to be understood and held in a very unique way. Some of the work that I do in my trainings around perinatal mental health, like I was a NICU baby. I was a 1-pounder. And 40 plus years later, my dad still cries about my experience. And I didn't realize until I was in this work where it's like your parents are traumatized. This is either it can be traumatized, oftentimes are by the experience if it is very unexpected. And it kind of lives with you, right? And it's a part of your identity. It's a part of your family system and structure. And so really being intentional about how we create spaces for families. And then we also recognize that Black babies and families also have a different experience in the NICU as well. And so to your point, Anise, around that mental health and lactation are not mutually exclusive, that is a point that I try to drive home all the time. Lactation and mental health is not mutually exclusive. So we have to make sure that we have culturally congruent care, culturally and racially congruent care when we're supporting new moms who are having and birthing people who are having these experiences in the NICU. And so, you know, really also talking to doctors. And there are certain, I know at Penn right now, there are certain research, research studies. I want to say I don't remember the name of it off the top of the Pelican study. There's a Pelican study going on right now at Penn Medicine in a collaboration with CHOP, really having doulas support NICU moms and birthing people. And so there is work, and we talked a little bit about Janae from Once Upon a Preemie, right? So there's work and organizations and people on the ground that are uplifting this community because they really need a physical hand. We know that Black birthing people in general and Black need support, but this is such a vulnerable community of folks, and that's the goal. That's the goal, to support folks.
Yes, thank you. So, Ro, I know you do a lot of work with advocacy, policy. We're working together on a lot of maternal health equity projects and different things like that. Why is this important? Like when we talk about policy design and different things like that from your lens.
Sure. So I have 3 boys, and each pregnancy obviously was very different. With my first 2 boys, I worked in the city where I live in New Jersey, and between paid family leave and support and what I needed, it was just lacking. And at the time, I was also doing productivity coaching. And for some people, they think that's just to-do list, checking things off the list. And for me, I was like, no, productivity and wellness are not mutually exclusive. It's not let's go hard and then rest. It's let's figure out how to make both of them coexist in the same space. So what was happening is I was having all these conversations with moms, and they were, trying to work in this flawed maternal health system. And basically they were trying to figure out, do I just need to color code my calendar differently? Do I need to use a different productivity system, a different to-do list? And I had to get to the point where I realized it's not you. There's a flawed system. You're not productive. It's not because you watched the one Netflix movie. It's not because you took a moment to go to the spa. That was not the issue. You were working within a broken system. And I figured I could help one client or I could do group coaching, but what would it look like from a systems level to actually impact policy to make that change? So then 10 women wouldn't have to come to me and say, I feel so unproductive. I can't breastfeed. I can't do this. I can't get all these things done. Where I can say, no, you need the right system in place. So that was really the trigger where, kind of like how Jabina says, her worlds collided. I thought I was doing productivity coaching, not realizing that in the maternal health space, it was the same thing. How do I allow a woman to experience that human flourishing? And it's ensuring that all the things work together in harmony.
Thank you. All right. So all good things, right? So any of you can jump in, right? Why do we we know we have Black Breastfeeding Week, right? We have these things where we have to acknowledge. What do you want our audience to know about why it's so important? Like why is, besides these things, like why is breastfeeding and amplifying the voices of Black communities, why is it so important? And what is the goal of what we hope to reach that you would want our audience to hear? And any of you can go first.
I think it's important that we have Black Breastfeeding Week because, one, it's always a question as to why. Why do we need it? And we need it because it's important for us to understand the historical implications and impact that racism plays, slavery has played on the Black women, on Black families. And I think it also speaks to the data. So when we look at the breastfeeding data, Black women and birthing people are not, we're always behind. There's always a gap. And what we do with Black Breastfeeding Week is really amplifying that Black women are breastfeeding, right? You may see the gap, but we know that, to Rose's point, that there are systemic inequities. And based on those inequities and the issues within the system, those are what's impacting Black families and birthing people. And I mean, we celebrated on last Sunday, right? Just bringing in Black Breastfeeding Week with over 200 people's mothers, babies, multi-generational community members coming together to uplift, to amplify, to support, to share stories, to love on new mamas, to, you know, eating good food and breaking bread, right? Like, it's this place where we come together as a community to do that work. And to also bring in the fact that mental health is just as important and a part of the conversation. And so, you know, really holding the entire person and the family, I think it's important. It's just important for us to amplify it. It's also important for us to push policy that we know are impacting Black birthing people, our students. You know, I work on the Coalition for Lactation Friendly Schools, and I'm incoming chair for the Pennsylvania Breastfeeding Coalition. And so it's really important that we just not look on it from an individual perspective, but like, how does it impact the interpersonal, right? How does it impact community? But then also, how are institutions, policy makers, how are we holding them accountable, right? And so I oftentimes lead in with awareness, making sure that communities are aware of, you know, what they need for breastfeeding. I too have had my own breastfeeding challenges. Other than awareness, making sure that resources are accessible to folks and that folks have access to it. But we're also holding institutions, we're holding legislators accountable, and then we're moving forward with action. What does that look like? Right? And we need to continue to have Black Breastfeeding Week. And that's not just a week, right? Because many of us are doing this work every day. So
every day.
The Black Breastfeeding Week, it's the time to celebrate all the work we've been doing all year long, which is pushing the narrative, right? Supporting boots on the ground, supporting community, pushing policy, and just holding women and birthing people. I've curated a body of work. Everyone wants to hold the baby, who will hold the mother. And so that is work that I do all year round. And so really, you know, again, just going back to uplifting and amplifying, letting folks know that our women are breastfeeding. There is a huge historical component as to why we are consistently behind the mark. But with the support of many Black lactation professionals, reproductive birth workers, we're out here, right? We're out here doing this work. And if it wasn't for us Black women out here doing the work won't get done, right? And I think I can say that and stand 10 toes down on it, right? Because we are the ones that are out here. And it comes from our lived experience. I think everyone so far have shared their lived experience. And I know, Shanita, you have your experience as well. We are brought into this work based on our lived experiences.
Yeah.
And yes, our professional worlds collide and we find our rhythm in it, but that's what community looks like, right? That's what the work, especially as Black mothers leading this work, you know, this is why it's so important.
I definitely agree with you. And I want to piggyback on the education and the empowerment piece, because when you think of education, it's the making sure that the baby has like a healthy gut health. We're talking about antibodies. For the mom, we're talking about reducing breast cancer, ovarian cancer, things like faster postpartum recovery, right? And I kind of want to answer the question by sharing a story. So just go with me. Don't raise your hand if you've ever said something like camping is only for white people or XYZ is only for white people, right?
Mhm.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I do not like bugs. I don't like things crawling on me. So I'm not the girl sleeping on the floor in the woods. However, my boys always want to do trails and stuff. So it's like, okay, fine. So I got a cabin for us. We walked into the woods, we stayed in the cabin. And the next morning I woke up, I'm like, that was so peaceful. That was so calm. Like my mind feels so clear. This is amazing. Now, everybody may not want to sleep on the floor. Everybody may not want to sleep in a tent, in a bag, but maybe you want to do a cabin. Maybe you want to do glamping. The point I'm trying to make is when I woke up and I said, this felt so amazing. If my mindset was camping is for white people, then I can equate that with wellness is for white people.
Mhm.
So if the representation is this thing is only for white people or for other people, then I'm
Mhm.
excluding myself from the conversation, from the experience. So when you see images of breastfeeding only being done by someone who doesn't look like you, then you start to internalize, oh, that's not for me. We don't do that. Now, listen, I'm not unaware, Jabin already mentioned it, I'm not unaware of the historical trauma of breastfeeding, like the wet nursing and like the slavery piece of it. I'm not unaware that formula was marketed to us aggressively in the 20th century, right?
Mhm.
So I understand all those things play into it. But if the imagery you're seeing is that it's not for you, then you start to believe that. So I feel like when we do these kind of events and have these conversations, it's saying two things can be true at the same time. Yes, it's true that there's trauma. Yes, it's true that there was a historical atrocity. Yes, we face so much, but who are we? Black women who rise, who are empowered, who are resilient, right? So that's kind of the thing. It's kind of like when we talk about Black maternal health and the themes of like joy and resilience. This is what this is. This is the education of here's why it's good for you. Here's why it's good for baby. It's the other part of the education that says, even if your birth plan, even if you swore with all you have that you're going to breastfeed no matter what, and it didn't happen, that's who is okay because mama's
Mhm.
wellness matters, right? So that education and that conversation, it's a cultural piece of, oh, we don't do that. Oh, the stigma. Oh, so you're just going to take your boob out in the park? Not
Yeah.
necessarily, but you're telling me to go to the bathroom to feed my baby. Do you eat your lunch in the bathroom? Right. So we're having these conversations because these things are playing in our heads, but this safe space is curated and created for us to be able to educate and empower and do all the things.
Yeah, I love what both of you said, and you really talked about everything that I was thinking, and just wanted to share. Sometimes I think about our generation amplifying Black breastfeeding as even just a healing and a reconnection to ourselves as Black women and Black mothers. Just thinking about everything you said, the historical racism, the systemic reduction of breastfeeding among our people. And I think about my own family, what I shared about my mom. It is not by chance that my mom didn't breastfeed. It's not by chance that she looked at me and saw how hard it was and said, it's hard. Don't do it. I didn't do it. You don't have to. It's because of all those historical things that both of you have mentioned. And it goes back to my great grandma and it goes back to my grandma and the impact that seeing wet nursing had on them. It goes back to the impact of being forced to only care for white children in as work in your hometowns and beginning to equate breastfeeding and caring for children as maybe even lower class. So I'm not going to do that. So all of these ideas and intersections of these ideas and experiences really have come together to shape how we have thought about breastfeeding in the Black community for years and generations. And I'm blessed that I was able to do it. And when I go out into public spaces, I think about it as my opportunity to um, do a little bit of like not systemic policy work, but getting to go out to the library. And when I see another Black mom who is struggling or she's breastfeeding, this is my opportunity to build community. And that's what I try to do. Introduce myself if they need help and it becomes so organic, and how you begin to talk about breastfeeding and the challenges and the supports and the resources that I use that I can now pass on to another Black mom. And I also think about, just when you talk about the policy and the impact that that has, I had my second baby when I was actually in grad school getting my PhD. Came back, and I was breastfeeding, and I was on clinicals, I was in classes, and it is because of the hard work that women have been doing over the last decade that it was normalized. That I could say, sorry, I need to step out of this meeting. Sorry, when I come back to clinicals, I need a place to breastfeed. And if there was nothing in existence, people were willing to give up their offices to allow an intern to do that. And so what that does is allow a Black woman, a Black mother, to have access to higher education, to provide for her family, to demonstrate to her community what is possible. So that's why it's just so important. The healing and the access is what we do when we continue to amplify Black breastfeeding.
And Shanita, if I could.
Yep. Go ahead, bro.
Real quick, Shanita and Jabina, I just wanted to talk about social media. I'm rarely on social media, but I do recall being a new mom and seeing a post with someone showing like 10 ounces of milk in both hands and like, yeah, I did this in 10 minutes and I have so much overflow. And I legit remember being in a closet space, not like a nice nursing room. And my employers had like 60,000 employees. So we were a large organization. But I remember being in this tiny supply closet that they converted that didn't even have a refrigerator, and pumping for like upwards of 25 minutes and literally getting like 2.5 as my norm, or 5 from both as a maximum. So then you're seeing these images of someone getting 10 ounces in like 10 minutes or something like that. And then you start to think, what am I doing wrong? What is wrong? And then of course you have someone, a well-meaning person, who would come in and say, oh, the baby's not getting enough. So the reason I'm sharing this is because these conversations allow that space where if you are ashamed to say, hey, I only pumped 3 ounces. Hey, I only got 4 ounces. Then someone can say, oh, girl, you're doing better than me, or that's the norm, right? So I just want to share, sometimes you have to take social media with a grain of salt. Sometimes someone may say something to you, and in every fiber of their being, they mean well when they say, the baby's not getting enough milk, maybe you should do formula. Are you sure? Da-da-da-da-da-da. They mean well. But if you know what you have set out to do, the baby's not starving and it's not hurting your mental health, then that's a call or a charge to push through. But again, make sure you have that community that Anise was talking about, so you can go to someone and say, hey, I'm a little embarrassed to share this, but this is what's going on. And then someone can then educate. So you also have to advocate and sometimes initiate that conversation. So I just wanted to share that. Javine, I think you were going to jump into.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what both of you shared. I think that also speaks to prenatal breastfeeding education and the importance of it, because when you are making an informed decision for yourself and you're getting the correct information, then you can say, like, I know you're making 20 ounces in one pump, but I may only make 5 ounces and I'm okay with that. It's also trusting our bodies and knowing what we're doing is for us and our babies, right? And it's also very individualized. Everyone's experience is different. Every pregnancy is different. And so to that social media part, it's huge. It is so influential. And we are right. We know that, right? I don't have to, tell you all this, but social media has such a big impact on how people raise their kids, how people choose to feed their kids. And we know that also formula companies, right? Big pharma is out there, and there are organizations that are supported by pharma as well on the internet that also are posing as though they're supporting lactation, especially Black and Brown communities. And so we also have to be very cognizant of all information isn't good information, even if it comes packaged in a certain way. I think that's also important to highlight. And, prenatal breastfeeding education so that you can make an informed decision and really thinking about breastfeeding efficacy and like, how does one feel about their choices and their decisions to nurse or not to nurse, right? And what does that mean?
Yeah, thank you, ladies. Really good stuff. And I was just like taking notes down because like everything that you said is powerful. Almost got teary-eyed. I'm working on it. You know, as I get older, I just had a birthday. I get a little more emotional. But that, you know, that historical context of the intergenerational trauma and just to see and to come together and have these conversations about now we are pushing back. We're always talking about undoing intergenerational trauma, right? And these things that we've learned and these things that didn't work for us. And then for the next, pouring into the next generation to where we're like, okay, it didn't work for us then. Like I could respect my great grandmother's resistance to wet nursing, but we do know that my great grandmother was being forced to do that because there had to be some sort of benefits there. So like one of the talks and the conversations that I always have in this space is like, now what? What do we do today? How do we start to restore our bodies and the rights to our bodies? How do we restore our culture and how we take care of our families? So thank you for like sharing that and saying like, look, we're busting up those intergenerational types of stereotypes. And Ro, I love that the analogy of this is for white people, right? Because it's like one of those things where like you may, like Jabina and you guys are saying, all of the social media, you may not see representation where you see women that look like you. And even in certain communities, I don't see anyone in my community breastfeeding, but somewhere I stumbled across a post or I stumbled across an event or I stumbled across Black Breastfeeding Week and I really want to do this, right? I want to try it. I want to do what the white people do because look, that mom looks happy and she's smiling, you know, like I remember you know, my sister-in-law was able to make tons and tons of milk and we were coming up empty, right? And just like you said, that story of comparison. So as a clinician, working with my clients and stuff, I'm always saying, get off of social media, don't compare. Because two, you have no proof of knowing that she made 20 ounces in 10 minutes. That could have been her whole life stock of liquid gold. And it could just be cow milk, right? She just might be projected. So I love that point of like getting away from social media. And I think all the clinicians in the room, we do the same thing with our clients about like that comparison syndrome and getting off of social media and the influences. Jamina, you talked a lot about doula training and post-pregnancy, pre-pregnancy education and things like that. And I know like the same way we're talking about the intergenerational trauma of breastfeeding and reproduction, we also have those intergenerational traumas of accepting like clinical care and different things. So one of the things that really tends to work for us, especially in the Black maternal health space, is the empowerment of our doulas, because they're kind of coming through like peers, right? So what are some ways that like these different supports can we pour in as professionals, as if anyone was listening and wanted to help, you know, more education and it didn't have to be from a clinician or they're not able to become an IBCLC, what are some peers and family ways that they can get involved and support the goals of breastfeeding?
Yeah, I think it's important that we continually educate doulas, but we know doulas are not the end all be all, right? I think there's a push for doulas, and I respect doulas and the work that they do, and they're so influential and important to the perinatal experience. But what I've recognized is that in my trainings, that doulas also have their own perinatal experience and their lived experience. And so wanting to assure that when we are supporting doulas in their training, that we're also supporting their mental health. It is so important that as we all embark on this journey as birth workers, reproductive psychotherapists, lactation consultants, that we also do our own healing before we continue or alongside doing this work. Right. And I've seen it more and more in my trainings where folks are sharing their stories and their experiences, the traumas that they've experienced or that they've witnessed from family members and friends. And what happens when you're triggered in the room?
That part.
Do you have the skills? Do you have the tools? And so as we continue to, provide professional development and training for doulas and birth workers and community health workers, we also have to also assure that they're getting the support that they need. I say the same thing when we are doing community-based participatory research and have community advisory boards and we're asking people to share their experiences. Folks are being re-traumatized and triggered based on the type of work that we do. So it's so important that we understand that and provide the support that people need as they're doing the work. That has just come up, I want to say, the last 3 or 4 sessions that I've done trainings with the doulas.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think that we're operating from, we know that there is evidence that says that peer support works, and sometimes doulas can get into spaces that we can't. You don't have to be a doula, like you said. Anyone, like that community health worker, it's that peer-to-peer, it's that lived experience. But I think it goes along, like when we're thinking about like substance use and recovery, we wouldn't necessarily connect someone who's in recovery with a sponsor who is still using, because they could be triggered and the downfall, and what are we looking at for sobriety. So I think that's very powerful, that when we're talking about peers and supporting, we know that there is this importance because you have access to the community. You're a community member. You may look like me, I may trust you, but also we have to be very careful that this is not our experience. This isn't your birth. This is their birth, this is their experience, and this is their goal. And to Jabina, thank you for that point. We have to heal so that we can help heal others. Otherwise, we're just projecting and we're coming in, and sometimes we're setting the progress and the movement back with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for that. Oh, Anus, were you going to say something? Go ahead.
I was going to add just that. So one of the things I also do is provide research, but also mental health consultation to an organization in Lancaster, PA, diversifying doulas initiative. So one of the things that we've done recently is we had a study, a qualitative study, and the exact same thing that Jabina just talked about is one of the things that came echoing through what our moms shared, is that it was phenomenal to receive subsidized free doula care, but that there were several instances where doulas themselves had carried their own perinatal trauma, and that came into the room and really impacted all the amazing effects that can come with doula care. And so we've been sitting with that, and in the same way been thinking about how do we provide groups and mental health care and equipping doulas with the tools to be preventative, from a prevention standpoint of how do we care for them as they are out doing that work. When they come back in, how do we help them process all that they are experiencing and then re-experiencing their traumas as they are navigating what can often be, we know, a racist healthcare system. So I thought that was such a powerful point, Jabina.
Agreed.
And I will share that I have built out a curriculum for doulas in that way, because folks, there's so many different doula trainings out there, but if you're training to become a doula to support people throughout their birthing experience, I think it's just as important and imperative that we also at the same time are teaching and supporting and helping them ground themselves in their own support, right? And how they heal themselves in their own healing. And so I think that's just as important.
Yes, thank you. Rob, go ahead.
So my work as a maternal health advocate is really about bringing parent and community voices into the conversations that shape the policy. So I like to focus on making sure that the decisions really reflect the values and the vision of the community and the families. I'm sure you've probably heard the saying that says, if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're probably on the menu, right? So the reason I share that is to answer your question. One of the ways you can help or contribute to the conversation if you're not in that space is to show up to meetings. You can attend school board meetings and say, hey, I work in your school X amount of times per week, but I realized that you didn't have an area for nursing moms. You can attend city council meetings and say, I like to go to areas around, but I noticed this place doesn't have like a plug for me to plug in my pump. Like, when you're in office, there's so many things that you're covering that you're not going to think of everything. So they're actually relying on their constituents to say to them, hey, this is what I need. I put you in office and this is what I need. So when you start to go to different community hearings and start to have those conversations, like Anise was saying, she goes to the library, maybe the next time you go, you can say, hey, I noticed you don't have a nursing room, or hey, I noticed, there's an area that could potentially be a nursing room, but it doesn't have electricity, something like that. But I like what Jabina was talking about regarding doulas. Doulas cannot be the end all be all, because then we're just turning them into like burned out professionals. And what's happening is when I do my coaching, like people have said to me, this feels like therapy. Is this supposed to feel like therapy? But there's some kind of healing that's happening because they already had a stigma connected to therapy. And I'm like, if you need help, go ahead and get that help, because I can only take you so far. So we need that circle of support where Anise can touch one part and then Jabina can touch one part. And I can say, Shanita, I can't do no more. I have to send them over to you. But we need that circle where, one, we're not getting burnt out because we're not taking all the people. And the other benefit is that people get different angles. So I'm not bringing my trauma in when someone says, oh, this happened at work. And I'm like, yeah, I remember that happened to me. And then I start to tarnish the situation. So we need time for ourselves so that we're healing, like you said, but also we need to create space. Like we can't have this scarcity mindset of I have to do everything and I have to heal the world. There is more than enough to go around, and we can do this together in community collectively.
Thank you for that. And I think when we're in talking about that, I think this has been a conversation. Jamina, I think you remember when we first, way back in 2021, did the One Birth Equity Conference, when it was really important to talk about the fact that when we start to try to make this momentum and talk about policy shift and advocacy, they're so quick to like give us one thing and tell us this should work, take this and go. And then I feel like my push and my frustration with our community of birth workers, like you said, Ro, we all can't do one thing. There's more than enough communities that need help. And before we went live, Jabina made the statement of amplifying the great work that we are doing from state to state to state to organization to organization to organization, because systemically they want us to take this one thing and shut up and go away, right? So I think the unity and the community is so powerful. And like Anise talked about one type of community, Jabina, a different, we all have a different definition of community, but that collaborative effort, I think, is really going to get us far. So I did want to like highlight that doulas can't be everything, right? Peers can't be everything. Community health workers can't be everything. Therapists can't be everything because we tired, sis. We got to take a nap too, So I think that that's very important to know. However it looks, just make sure that you are looking for your community. And sometimes it's not your immediate family. It's not right there. And if you want to use social media, try to find something that works for you. No matter what the I don't want to say no matter. Don't look for a specific label. Look for a specific village and a specific community that's going to align with your goals for you and your family, and then explore that journey there. So I think we're getting to time. So I just would like to hear each of you, like, because we are an organization that really focuses on mental health and well-being. In addition to, what would you say, in my clinical experience, I've had women who experience these feelings of anxiety and depression during breastfeeding, and it was competing with their feelings of breastfeeding because they're committed to it. They made their mind up that they wanted to do it, but maybe they have different experiences. Do any of you have any coping skills or different experience or things that you would tell a patient that's experiencing that when they have something that's competing with their goals of successful breastfeeding?
I can kick us off. So I always like to lean into the emotional support first. Like sometimes someone is in a space and they just need to get it out. So I want to give them that space, allow them to understand it is a safe space, and validate their feelings. Everything they say may not be true, but their feelings, you can't take that away from them. They're feeling what they're feeling, and you validate it to say, it's okay to feel this way. You're not alone. Many parents struggle with this. And if you have a story, feel free to share. I also experienced this, so I understand what my perspective, not that you understand what they're going through, because it's still unique. And then you just kind of take that pressure away from them to say, Your worth as a mom is not tied to your ability or desire to breastfeed. So you really have to say to them, I know I told you that there are all these benefits. I know I told you that it's good for the baby. I know I told you all these things and we're trying to bring it back and we're trying to normalize it. I know I said all that. However, everyone's journey is different. And in your case, if you're feeling like this is your end, I know you want to get to a year and you got to 6, that's beautiful, right? So just kind of listening to them and validating their feelings and then offering practical advice, like saying, maybe just need to take a break. Because what I noticed in my personal experience, and then I'll kick it over to someone else if you want to share, is there doesn't seem to be a hard and fast rule or an actual best practice. Like I said, I have 3 pregnancies. The first one, they told me, don't pump until after the colostrum. The second one, they told me, girl, start pumping way before the baby comes so you can start sort of. I'm like, pumping what? Like, I don't have anything to pump. And then the third one, I didn't even ask anyone anything because I'm like, I'm doing this my way. And the third one was actually the best, not because it's my third child, but because my mindset had been, this is going to work. And then by that time, I had already done a year for each one. So then I don't want to be at the family table saying, yeah, I did a year for them, but for you, I did 2 days. So, I definitely pushed myself through. But my experience was also different because I was no longer commuting an hour and change from New Jersey to New York. I was home. So that was different. And I already hated pumping to begin with. So come on, if you're going to latch, we're good, right? So my point in saying all that is just give people options. Tell people maybe just need to take a break. Maybe you're pumping too much. Maybe your body is stressed, but just trying to give them options and saying, if you need an alternative, which means the baby's not latching, they're taking the breast milk from a bottle, that's breast milk too, right? So just kind of educating people, validating their feelings, taking the pressure off, and reminding them that your mental health is what matters. Baby is not going to care that you spend all your energy pumping if you're going to sit there crying the whole time.
Right. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll jump in and share. I think for me, it's the power of storytelling and allowing people to share their experiences and just creating that safe space for them to do so. And then listening is medicine, right? So even as people are sharing their stories, just creating space for people to be heard. And I also agree with Ro. It's that both things can be true at the same time. We know the benefits of breastfeeding. We know that we encourage folks to exclusively breastfeed, but exclusively pumping is also breastfeeding. Donor milk is available to most people, and the Earth app, Kimberly Seals Allers just shared yesterday some really exciting news for babies who've been impacted by maternal death with receiving donor milk, right? And so breastfeeding looks very different. Providing human milk looks very different, and it's an individual journey. And so that is one thing that I encourage people with, is creating and writing your own narrative, your own story. There's the African proverb that says, until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always get the reward, right? And I live by that. I want folks to be able to write their story, rewrite their story, shift their minds and their thinking about how, yes, it might have been traumatizing, it might have been hard, but there's this silver lining in it that you're able to still tell your story, right? There are people who don't have that opportunity, and we know that story all too well. With the Black maternal mortality and morbidity statistics. And so really wanting folks to know that this is their experience. And, we can do all the box breathing and the mindfulness and journaling and, setting micro goals, because it's like, just take it a day at a time, a moment at a time. Let's just get through this feeding session right now. Today, this moment is what counts, right? And so really, we talked about, the example of someone with tons of breast milk, but let's just take it a moment at a time. And I think once people can get through those first few weeks with really real great good care and support, that will really carry them throughout the remainder of the perinatal period, postpartum period.
Yeah. I mean, I echo what both Ro and Jabina said. I can't say what they said any better. And what I would just add to it is just the power of cultivating that community for yourself. And it can start before the baby gets here, but don't worry, it's not too late, even if the baby is here. And there are so many ways to do that. And I think about, in particular, when I work with NICU parents, what that looks like is finding those particular organizations out there that are providing peer support and or resources, financial variety of things that are related to that unique experience. But like I also said, in my world, I try to provide community as well in so many different ways, from whether it's at the library and being that person who sees a new mom and says, come over here, and beginning to go person by person and building that out. At church, the same things. And I have had the power to see, like, have been able to see the power of starting one person and two and four and six mothers coming together, and how before you know it, those challenges that mothers are having when they're breastfeeding, you become that safe place. You created a safe place for yourself and for others around you, so that you can do all the things that Jabina and Ro are talking about, so that there are people there to listen. And I would say, like, for anyone listening, I think what always shines through to me is that you don't have to have an answer. When a mom is having a hard time with breastfeeding, you don't have to give her an answer on whether she should continue or stop. If you are a therapist, at that moment, she does not need CBT strategies to help her, modify her thinking, but she does need to be heard. She needs to be heard. She does need to release. And just like Jabina said, the more that we talk and we share experiences and our stories, we just are providing space for that rewiring of the brain anyway, right? For that reshaping and rewriting of our stories. So I think community, I can't speak to that. That's just my favorite topic. I think I just love community. That really works in this instance as well. And just always sharing with the mom that you have permission to take care of yourself. Like, the expectations in motherhood are far reaching, from breastfeeding down to when to start giving, solid foods. How do we talk to our babies, right? The expectations are just astronomical, and the way they impact how moms can experience motherhood is it's hard. It's so hard to experience, but it's hard to also watch from the outside as well. And so we can just help moms to just soften up some of those expectations, and, like Jabina said, begin to rewrite those for yourselves. What are your values, and what feels good for you? Because nothing goes beyond that point that I said in the beginning, is that mommy's mental health and baby's mental health interconnected. So when mommy's stressed out about the amount of milk she's making and if she's going to keep going, baby feels that. And so the best thing that we can do to increase production, but also just everybody's breastfeeding because they want to give the best to their baby.
Yes.
We can give the best to our baby in a variety of ways, but nothing quite beats the ability to connect with your baby skin to skin. And that's what I say to my NICU parents, my NICU moms. Connection with your baby can go beyond breastfeeding. Skin to skin, looking in those eyes. Like, that's it right there. And that's one of the major things that breastfeeding also provides as well. And we can do that with breastfeeding, but we can also do that beyond breastfeeding.
Right. Thank you for that. And ladies, thank you so much. That's very helpful too for our audience to hear that there are other ways to bond too, but breastfeeding is like the beginning, right? The skin to skin and the feeding your baby and the beginning of the mother child relationship where they are looking to you, but also knowing that you can still bond if this is a struggle for you and you opt out. Because I often hear with clients that I work with that they feel like they've missed a window of bonding because they opted not to breastfeed for whatever reason. So then reimagining that and finding other ways to bond is very important too. So thank you for touching on that. And I wanted to acknowledge Kismel I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. She also says meeting people where they are can in itself be very comforting, right? And I think we've all highlighted that over and over again. Validating your experiences. And just really, acknowledging, like, we see you, we hear you, we feel you, we're there for you, right? And finding your community. So I want to thank you, ladies, for everything that you do, all of the amazing work that you do. It's been a pleasure spending time with you today and hearing from you. And I think that if you guys have any words for our audience or anything that you want to say, we are going to close out. No? All right. Well, go ahead.
So I'll just kind of echo and synthesize a lot of the wisdom that was already shared. And it's that, culture is important and advice is useful. So I don't know why I'm in storytelling mode today, but real quick, this man got married to a woman. She was making a turkey. She cut it in half, threw one part away, put it in the oven, baked it. He was like, why would you do that? She's like, because my mom does that. So he called the mom. He's like, so, such and so just threw away half of the turkey. She was like, yeah, that's what my mom did. So he called the grandma. And he was like, he told the story and she said, oh, back in the days, we didn't have a pan big enough. So we would cut it in half, but also we didn't have a refrigerator. So we had to throw away the other piece. So they brought this generational way of making a turkey or ham or whatever it was down the generations, not knowing why. So again, culture is important. Advice can be useful, but sometimes you have to kind of write your own story. And like you said, you need to reimagine what that can look like and make your own choices, because we have to unlearn what doesn't serve us and we have to relearn what serves us, because we may just be doing something or listening to something because generationally that's what we were told, or just feeding into family traditions that are not best for you. So start to ignite that introspection of, why do I do this? Why do I want to do this? Why don't I want to do this? And just have those conversations with yourself and just unlearn what doesn't serve you.
Thank you for that.
Can I just piggyback off that? Because I've been thinking about this experience and story, and I know we got to wrap up. We got a few more minutes.
I love an hour though.
At our BBQ for Bay that was on Sunday, we have Bay Talk, which is the power of storytelling, and we collaborated with the Black Mind. And there was a man. It was so multi-generational. There was a 75-year-old man. He's the father of IBCLC here in Philly. And he shared a story and he was so tearful. He said, my mom just passed away at 90 plus years old last year, and I miss her dearly. But one thing she did tell me was that in 1951, I was breastfed. Mm-hmm. And he said, and my children were breastfed. My grandchildren were breastfed. And it's because, and he was like, it was just that story. It was just her telling me that I was breastfed that then impacted his children and his children's children. So going back again and it was just such a heartfelt moment because his daughter was there, his son-in-law was there, and he's at, a Black Breastfeeding Week event saying, mm-hmm. I will support, uplift, and magnify this because my mother, who passed at 90 plus years old, was able to tell me why she breastfed me and why she breastfed me. And he held on to that to then support his wife and his children being breastfed. And so, it does definitely goes a long way, whichever way you spin the story, right? It's powerful. And so, again, just thank you all. And was so great to just be in this space with you, sharing this conversation.
Thank you guys for being here. So, Anise, you good?
I am good at what everyone has shared is beautiful. Love it.
All right. Thank you. So guys, thank you for joining us today. I hope that this was fulfilling your cup and motivating you to continue to do what you do. Thank you for all the boots on the ground, all the great work that you do. You see here we have the IG handles, IG at PSI Alliance for People of Color, www.postpartum.net. And if you or anyone you know are in need of any supports, PSI is here to help. You can call the helpline, which the number is running there, or you can text 988 for crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.